everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday night. We are back in action after missing out last week. It's been a long time. It's been 2 weeks. If we had tutor, we could have been all fluent in Spanish in this time, but we're not. 2 weeks later, I know I was on vacation. Gally was traveling, so we did skip last week, but we are all back. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here in hot ass Chicago. I mean, Outer Banks was kind of hot towards the end too, but hot by the pool as opposed to hot on the deck are totally two different things. But Bickler is with us. The stash is all over the place today. What's happening?
What's going on, man? We're smack dab in the middle of a heat wave. It's miserable. But yeah, I'm glad that you guys are back because, it turns out when I took a poll on who wanted to see me do this show solo, the results weren't great. So glad you guys are back.
I know we threw it out there. We were like, does anybody want to host a show with Bickler? And it has never been so quiet.
Surprisingly, no takers. It was weird.
Everybody ran the other way. But Gally, who was running around playing golf, is with us. What's up?
Awful. Let me tell you that right now. Don't ever do that. And I like how you were like, jet setting around the country. I flew to Pittsburgh and back in the same day, which no one should ever do. I guess unless you go to Pittsburgh and then you want to get the hell out of town. That's a quick thing to do is leave the same day you show up. But it was not a great trip by any means. It was a round of golf, and it was all uphill. I'm not kidding when I say this. It was literally an entire uphill. And you're like, Gally, it was a scramble. You had a cart. Except for the tournament was in Pittsburgh, like 15 minutes from where the U.S. Open was, the day after they had torrential rains. So the carts weren't allowed on the course. So we were on cart path only. So you were basically walking the entire course. And I am such a bad golfer. I end up walking to my ball and picking up the other random balls on the way back to where the next ball was. So I basically walked an 18-hole course. And I was miserable the entire time. And when I got home at midnight, I was still miserable.
I love how Gally is going to pretend like flying to a golf event and back out the same day isn't a lifestyle that, we have any business being in.
I know. It's kind of like an odd day. In the morning, I'm with Prince. It's in the Monday show. In the evening, there's another Prince going on daily golf.
First of all, I would have rather worked a 24-hour shift at a McDonald's, all right, on the turnpike than I would have flown anywhere to golf and come back. Like, golf's probably one of the, toughest things for me to do because I'm so terrible at it, and I am awful at things that I am awful at. And by awful, I mean awful to deal with.
I know exactly what that means, though. It sounds odd, but I know exactly what you mean. I am awful at things I'm awful at as well. I just can't, which is why I don't play golf. I just don't have the patience because, when you learn certain sports, I don't know, for example, tennis or something like that, you hit it, you're like, God damn it, you can just pop another ball and just get going. I know there's the driving range and stuff, but I would not be able to kind of deal with the frustration of a golf game after a bad hit. I'm going to walk angry all the way to the shots I took over there. Bickler, are you a golfer? You look like you'd be a golfer.
I used to be fairly decent at golf in my younger years, primarily because of my dad. Never at the level where I would fly to another location and out in the same day, for an event. But I was fairly decent for a while. That being said, if I went out now, it would just be to drink beers and help out. It would not be to be the main attraction for sure.
Speaking of people who are good at golf, by the way, Kenny, who's new to the channel over here, wins tournaments out in your neck of the woods over there, Bickler, taking other people on. I don't know if it's semi-pro or whatever. So maybe we should, speaking of working 24 hours straight, we're going to do the podathon, obviously coming up over here in less than 2 months. The good news for you fellas is I was on vacation this time and I didn't come back with any really over the top crazy ideas. I feel like I did that last year, so I took it easy this year. But yeah, I mean, maybe we can just do auction off some golf lessons by the pro on our channel or something like that. Are you guys ready, by the way? There's a month and a half left over here. Are you guys ready for the 24-hour podathon where three of us are going to be on air 24 hours trying to beat the $5,000 we were able to collect for the 23 Foundation last year?
I'm sore just thinking about it. I think this year, job of having appropriate sleep schedule before, and I'm probably going to load up on multivitamins before so I don't instantly get sick like I did last time afterwards.
Yeah,
that's a good question. Have we learned anything, Gally? Aside from you need a different chair and you need to switch chairs.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned I'm going to try to stand for a good like 6 to 8 hours of it. I'm serious about that. I'm going to figure out how I can stand for a while because like there's part of me that thinks the sitting actually made me more tired because I just got more sore as the day went on. I definitely have learned that sciatica takes like 2 to 3 months to get out of your system once you've obtained it, and it never really goes away. And I also learned that bad ideas that you agree to do twice are kind of like regular life. So you just keep sucking it up and going for it again. So basically, am I ready to do this? No. Am I going to do this? Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? This is an annual thing now, the second annual 24-hour podathon. We'll announce more details soon. There's already like a bunch of cool stuff headed our way from the foundation, as well as some like artists. For example, I spoke to Abigail during vacation and stuff like that we were able to add to the silent auction, along with all the other good stuff that we're going to get. But I don't know if you guys are ready for that, but I know you guys are ready for this. It's trivia time. So since we didn't have it last week, I will use actually last week's question. And this is based on the fact that Gally actually kind of mentioned this a little bit. It's 1840 into the podcast, says Pickler. So we'll go with this question over here. Our good old friend, David Coote, he served in the last match that he refereed before the suspension. Which players scored the goals in that game for Liverpool? I'm going to go with you first on this, Gally, because you did even mention it, and you referenced the game, I think, if I remember correctly, in the last podcast that we recorded.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the night match at home against Villa. It was a 2-0 victory. I want to say it was Núñez, but that would be stupid.
That would be an offside guess.
Well, I'm like, it's just dumb to even say it. But then again, it was in November, and I think in November he might have actually still had gotten one of his 4 goals on the season. I'm gonna. It was Gakpo and McAllister.
Fickler. He even set up the table for you, so you have
it's good. You got the game and the score. I mean, I wouldn't have known any of those things.
Exactly.
Which is not surprise to anybody here. I barely know what day of the week it is. I would just say statistically, the odds are one of those goes Mo Salah, right? Like I would say statistically, one of those goes is Mo. Oh, it's November. Darwin was scoring around then. Toss up between, do I want to go? I can't remember if Jota was out here, and then that's why Darwin was playing. I feel like he did play in this match. I'll go Jota, but I kind of got a sneaky. I don't know. I'll go Jota.
You guys gotta go.
It's Darwin and Mo.
It was Darwin, and if you guys remember, it
was myself out of it
where Mo gets clobbered. Could have been a red card,
and Darwin scores it.
Yep, from a tight angle, Darwin ends up scoring. Almost goes out of bounds, but then he scores from the tight angle. And then Mo's goal is he's pressing, it bounces off of him. He kind of takes off from the halfway line and scores. So, 2-0, and Núñez in minute 20. And Mo, minutes 84 in that glorious 2-0 win on the way to the title. So we'll talk Núñez, we'll talk Jota. Let's start with what's done already, and then we'll kind of go towards what's going to be done and everything like that. Florian Friday was in full effect. That one is in the books. Was really hoping for a Milos Monday. That didn't happen, but it looks very much like it's going to happen tomorrow. He's already there for physical and everything like that. So hopefully it will be happening tomorrow. So 3 major signings in the books, Pickler, with all the rumors of outgoings. Looks like there will be a lot more on the way. where are you at with looking at this offseason? I know when you look at rival fans, I don't want to take them as a base because let's face it, when Chelsea is signing everybody under the sun and we were not signing anybody, our fan base was jealous of that too. Like fan bases just want signings and signatures and new faces and new toys. But where are you at with the offseason so far?
I'm happy with it. I think when I look at it in totality as to what it's going to be, I think this is the window that you can go spend 400 million pounds and basically redo this side. It's the second year of a new manager who's had a year to evaluate. I think the reason we can go spend 400 million is because you have multiple Champions League revenues coming and compiling now. I think also you're able to do this because you haven't done it over the last 3-4 windows.
Yeah.
The fact that we haven't spent allows you to go reinvest in the squad. We've always said we'd rather do, no business than business that we're half in on, right? So I think like this allows you to go make those pieces. I think there's an obvious need for a striker. I think there's an obvious need for center back depth. I think there's a world where you could lose 4 of your front 6 from this year. And I think there's a world where obviously Robbo leaves. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces that can be kind of pushed out for additional revenue if you need to do so. I think it's really interesting. I think we may enter a period where the club kind of holds out and sees what happens with the market. But there are still pockets that are very, very clear areas of need in the side that I think will get addressed.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The players that are coming in, because that is a lot of changes. And we're looking at, looks like, we'll talk about, Quansah and maybe Guehi coming in instead and stuff like that, Gally. I was asking this question to the Polish Prince in this Monday morning show. The last time we did a lot of changes, it was all midfield, right? We just redid the midfield. And we were all like, well, we'll see how this, blends and works and stuff like that. But at least we said, the back line is consistent. So the 5 behind them is still the same 5, which will help them and all that kind of stuff. The only concern that I have, and it's not even like a major concern, but something that slightly worries me, because that's what I do as a lifestyle, is worry, is too many changes. Could that be a negative in the short term? Definitely not in the long term, based on the quality of players we're getting. But in the short term, could too many changes be an issue? Because now you're making it along all the lines. It's not just the midfield changing or your front line changing. You already changed your right back, left back, possibly a center back. You're reshuffling your midfield, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. You are probably introducing new faces up top as well.
Yeah, I think the difference is if you told me that we may buy 6 or 7 players, right? If we had bought 6 or 7 players, hello to Ethiopia. Thank you for
Ethiopia.
watching.
See, we're worldwide, man. That's nice. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. I would honestly say, from the standpoint, if it was Mo and Virgil and Ali, like now you're telling me we're basically taking out the core of the side. Yep. And I feel because we still have the most important player at the front of the pitch, the two most important people at the back of the pitch, and our leader in Van Dijk, and of course the best goalkeeper in the world in Alisson, and then that core midfield. And I understand there's going to be a shakeup adding Wirtz into it, whether that means it's the same 3 guys and Wirtz and then Jones as kind of the deputy to all of it, or if Szoboszlai and Jones are on your bench. I mean, you still have McAllister, you still have Gravenberch. For now, I'm still in the mindset that you have Robertson to start the season unless he gets sold. So I do think there's a lot there that will stay consistent to the point where I don't think your worries have to be as drastic.
How about you, Bickler? Or I guess maybe I should say, does that even figure into your thinking when we talk about the front line? You were talking about how many changes might happen up top. We talk about Núñez, Jota. We were kind of like having a discussion on Discord in terms of like what we feel like, Jota should be worth and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there was like talks about Diaz earlier. Does that change your mindset in terms of, we made a lot of changes. Let's stay a little bit more set up top, except Núñez.
I think the fear only comes into plays when you're just looking at the sheer number from a turnover standpoint, right? But I think to Gally's point, when you look at the players that are still left and the players that are leaving, I think that's when it starts to feel better for me. You're adding one of the top 5 players under 25 in the entire world into a midfield that's already really good. You have your leaders in Mo and Verge. You have essentially all of your captain leadership is still somewhat involved in this. We'll see what happens with Robbo, right? And I think that's a big thing is Robbo is such a strong personality. But I got to tell you, man, like this Frimpong kid, I think that he's going to be a really, really big part of this club's culture. And I don't think it's going to take him long. When you look at how he talks and the camaraderie he's already got with a lot of the players on this team coming up in the English setup, when you look at how he talks about being at Liverpool and how he talks about the players that are already here, like to me, he seems like the next wave of leadership in this club already, and he's been here like a week. Like I think the kind of players that you're adding, and this is what I love about this club, when it does business, it's putting players on the pitch, but it's putting personalities in the locker room. And I think like they do as good a job of any team at filling needs on the pitch, but also putting the framework in for a successful locker room. And that includes players that may not be starting 11 players, but are integral to betting players in from other cultures and other countries into the side and into the Liverpool community. So I think when you look at that in totality, I think we've done a great job of making sure we've got the right characters coming in, making sure the established leadership and framework and the spine of the side is still intact. And then the pieces that are going, like I'm not going to name names. We've already got one that was a known problem on the training pitch, right? We've already got one that we've known has been a distraction for over a year and a half and hasn't been committed to the club. And we're replacing it with younger, more hungry players that are saying the right things with the right attitude. And like for me, those are all pluses. I don't see negatives there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I don't want to take it the wrong way. It's not like I guess maybe I'm trying to kind of hold back the extreme enthusiasm because you look at these signings. I mean, the amount of, speed we've injected, which I felt was lacking at times in terms of being athletic. You added like a Frimpong, you add a Kerkez, who is basically like a young Robertson, the Robertson that we used to have kind of thing. And I think, Gally, the thing that doesn't make me as nervous with the ones that I've done so far is Frimpong, you bring in a guy who's very natural, obviously, and kind of like Bickler says, he's already, we have half of Netherlands team there, so we have familiarity from there. We're getting beeps from, I don't know, somebody.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't know if it was you or not. But anyway, and then Kerkez is already familiar, so these guys are not going to make an adjustment to the country, because that's always a huge deal. I think people kind of like overlook that. I mean, if you look at like Sobostai's interview and stuff like that, doesn't matter the profile of player and if you're a captain of your national team and stuff. When you go to a different country, different culture, different setup, everything different, it's a huge change, especially for a younger player. Kerkez is coming from Bournemouth. He's familiar with the Premier League. He's been in England, so Frimpong is familiar. And I think Frimpong's presence probably will help Wirtz in terms of getting acclimated. I guess that's the biggest question mark, especially with the price tag. Do you think that affects, or how it affects Wirtz in the initial few months at least? Because everything he does is going to be really analyzed, not by us only. We're going to be more like, what is he going to do? But I think rival fans, kind of like when people signed Caicedo and stuff like that, we were like picking on his performances and stuff. So he's going to get the same treatment from the Premier League in general.
He's going to get it from the whole world. I mean, he's going to be the biggest star that moves teams this season. I mean, that's not a question. I don't believe. Like, I mean, maybe Isak will move at some point. I'm not even going to there at this point. I'm sure we'll get there. But Wirtz has a lot of pressure, but he doesn't have to. I'm not even guaranteeing that he starts the first match against Bournemouth. I expect him to, because I think when you sign a player for that much money, he starts the first match of the year. But, like, it wouldn't shock me if he didn't start the first match or two and he gave, literally cameo performances, 20, 30 minutes off the bench, makes it, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't start Frimpong or Wirtz or even Kerkez in the first match of the year if Robertson's still there. You have a side that just won the league. You're comfortable with Bradley. You're comfortable with Robertson. It'll all depend to me on how the preseason goes, how well they play. I expect Wirtz to start. I'm not so sure about Frimpong.
I think Gravenberg not being there also opens up a spot in that midfield.
Well, that helps with dropping Soberslide back and not having to even get to that in the first match. That's a great point. I forgot he has the one match suspension from the red card in the final match of the year against Palace. I just think that when you see Wirtz play, you know he's going to fit in. I think the fact that he is as much of a family person as he is, the fact that Liverpool is supposedly negotiating to potentially purchase his sister because she was going to Bayern and she might be playing in the women's side because his parents want to move to Liverpool so they can be here this year to support him. Like, to me, that feels like this family isn't going to allow this to become Kevin De Bruyne at Chelsea, where it just got out of control for him way too quick. And before he knew it, he fell out with the manager and it just fell apart. And even when he came back to City at first, there was rumblings like, is he going to live up to the price tag? Is he as good as they said he was? And then quickly he bedded in. And I think we're going to see that with Wirtz. I'm not worried about the pressure on him. If he was worried about the pressure, he would have went to Bayern Munich where there would have been zero.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, look, there could be some growing pains as well. But I mean, I think we're going to see we're going to have probably, especially in the beginning, going to have a lot of moments where we see why he is how much. But we're also going to see that it's going to take a few more, like a month or two before he fully settles in. Having a full and long off season is a blessing. And maybe, we talked about this last year too. Maybe that was another reason of doing these big changes now and staying put last year, because now you do have a full preseason for all these new guys to kind of like blend into an existing, title winning side. Next up, let's go back, continuing on the trend of what has already been done. I was talking about it this morning as well, Bickler, the Quansah sale. My initial response when I saw the news was, man, I don't know if we kind of like pulled the trigger too early on this, because we could have had a player there. Almost like a year and a half ago, we were like, oh, he's going to be next to Van Dijk for years and stuff. But the buyback clause automatically makes it a great deal for me. Gets him the playing time, and I really do feel like he was the one behind this because he did not want to be 3 or 4 another season. Gets him the playing time. We get to see what kind of a player he is. You get to do the buyback, and especially if you can kind of convert it to Guehi for another like 10, 15 million, it's like a win-win-win for basically everybody involved, it looks like.
Yeah, I think it's very rare that you see a deal that's mutually beneficial for both the clubs involved and the player, right? Like all three parties, I think it's a good move for all three. I think it underscores my feelings on Quansah. I personally had serious doubts that he'd ever be Liverpool level. I know that it takes some more time to develop and he needs those minutes to get there. Maybe he'll find the consistency. Maybe I'll be wrong. But to me, when I saw this, it was an immediate indication. Like, I don't get too caught up in the buyback clause. I think it's nice. I think it's insurance. I mean, how often have we gone back and used that on a player? Very, very, very rarely, right? Typically, when we do this and we have a buyback, we have a pretty good read on the situation. We're selling them because we have a strong suspicion. I think, to me, when I saw it, it was just an indication that we were going to be in the center back market for sure, 100%. Because I think you can't get rid of a player like that. Have the Joe Gomez situation, have the Konate contract situation, and not reinvest in that position. So to me, it was a guaranteed marker of like, yes, we're absolutely going back into that market on this window. And like I said, I think it's the best move for this club. I think it's the best move for the player for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There are a lot of options. We talked about Guehi. I still think, the kid at Brighton is a good option for us. There's a lot of different things out there that a lot of different directions we could go that I think strengthens this side. So it'll be interesting to see what we do there.
I haven't pulled up his numbers. What's his name? Vanderbach? Is that what his name is?
Yeah.
I haven't looked. I mean, we were looking at his numbers, like Quansah's numbers compared to Guehi, and like the thing that really kind of like comes out of the numbers sheets, the stats, is probably how much better he is in the air. And I think that was like a concern. Obviously, he got yanked in the first match and stuff like that, Gally. I know like we've kind of gone back and forth on the kid a little bit in terms of like how we rate him. I like his confidence. I like how he got benched or we've been pulled or, not played, but would come back and would still play like he has been there all along. And he didn't have that in the system for a very young kid. So I like the buyback because I do still think potentially there's a really good center back in there.
I mean, unless Slot leaves in the next 5 years, there's no chance you buy this kid back. Because if there was any chance that Arne Slot wanted this kid or thought this kid was a big-time player, he would put up with the year or two of the project it would take, and he would demand you sell Joe Gomez for the same 20, 30 million, and you go buy him a regular guy, and he could have kept him as his fourth choice. I personally think
that comes from Quansah a little bit. I mean, I always get the feeling that, as brutally honest as Slot is like, dude, you're 3 or 4. And let's face it, when Gomez was there, he was almost 4.
And he was 4.
I want to play.
I don't think Arne Slot cares what players feel or think. I honestly don't.
Yeah, but do you want a guy who's going to be pouting all year? You don't have to. But
No, I don't. But we just saw it. That's what Quansah did all year. He pouted for half the year. He was irritated. He complained to the media. He made sure everybody knew he wasn't happy with how he wasn't playing. He basically spoke out after he was forced to play right back. He didn't like that Curtis Jones got starts in League Cup matches and other matches when he was on the bench. Like, I don't think Quansah was happy here, but I think it was kind of seen. And I think the manager said, he's not for me, guys. Do the best you can. If you keep him, we'll play him. But this is a great move because you send him out for his 100 games. It's basically a loan where someone gave you money to spend in the meantime. Yeah. But the buyback is the full plus 20. So it's 60 million. This guy has to turn out to be almost Van Dijk. I mean, he has to be better than the Zabarni kid. He has to be better than Huijsen. And to me, that's when I hear people say, I don't think we got enough. We got 30 million for a guy who made 4 starts last year, and the manager basically quit on twice. I think this was a masterclass. I think it was great work. Leverkusen had to put a buyback clause in on their record club signing. I mean, he's the most expensive player that club's ever bought. And they had to put a buyback clause in just to get the deal across the line. I think it's great for him. I think it gives him a really good chance of making Tuchel's spot for the next year's World Cup. And I think that's what mattered to him. But all I kept hearing was give him time, give him time. He's a 22, 23-year-old kid. He'll be patient. You have to be patient with center backs. And then this kid had 1 year under Jurgen Klopp and thought he should be a starter at Liverpool. So for me, I think I kind of feel to Paul's point, like maybe this is another one this was the club kind of separating itself from a really talented player, but also being like, you're not Harvey Elliott. You're not one of these great star players that we're going to worry about letting go. I think they have very little worry. And I don't think there's very little chance he ever plays in red again in a Liverpool shirt.
See, I disagree to that. I feel like, if he goes out there, because let's face it, in 2 years, 60 million for a center back might be peanuts, especially for an established good center back. That could be peanuts in 2 years if you're going to be able to bring him back. And he's, will he want to come back? And that
was where I was about to say, that was kind of what I was going to say. Why would he? Isn't that kind of the same thing? Like, you didn't think I was good enough 2-3 years ago. You gave me 45 minutes and benched me and then basically buried me for a season. You sold me to Germany. And now a couple years later, Bayern Munich wants to buy me and you want me to come back to Liverpool? Like, no, I think I'll sign.
I think that depends on the conversation that was had. I mean, it depends on like how he left. If the conversation is like, hey, I want to play. I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play. And then you guys will benefit, blah, blah, blah. Like, depends on how those ties were cut, I think, in terms of him coming back. I do think a big part of why he's sold is mainly because the player wants to play. I mean, we talk about, Costas being okay with like playing 10. He'd rather play 10 games here than 40 games another club kind of thing. I think with his age, and he does probably think more highly of himself. And I'm okay with that, especially for a center back. I am okay with that. But if he turns out to be like a top-notch center back and you can bring him back for 60, you never know, but you might be right. If it's like something to do with slots and him not clicking, I just felt like he got, when we thought that Slot was done with him, he did keep getting opportunities afterwards. And I don't think he was as bad during those opportunities, but never could. I mean, he's never going to get over Konate. And I do feel like, I mean, if I had to pick, I mean, I'll ask you, Bickler, if you were doing a depth shot and if Quansah was there, would you put him above or below Gomez, for example? I mean, I think we know Konate is already going to be 2.
God, I'd probably put him above Gomez, but that's because we haven't seen Gomez play center back in, like, I feel like forever.
I mean, I was watching some like highlights and I was like, oh shit, that's right. I forgot Gomez played that game and stuff. Like it was against City, I think, and stuff like that. So, but I mean, I would normally just by talent and experience and stuff like that, I would rather, like have Gomez playing. But that brings me to the Konate thing. I think that's something that we should talk about. We did kind of touch on it because like somebody in the audience was asking this morning. What do you do with that situation, Bickler? We're heading towards a time, I think, where more and more players are going to do this. They're going to use their contract situation, kind of like gambling on themselves, if you will. This is probably risky for a guy like Konate who gets injured regularly, but probably going to play out his contract unless he really gets what he wants. And I don't know what he wants is the same as what Liverpool is willing to give. Do you sell him and cut your losses short, or do you say, he's too good and too important right now in this team that is going to be challenging for a lot of things, that, hey, if you lose, you don't get anything for him, you don't get anything for him. Just
well, I think this is why I love the fact that we're in at least seeming to be in discussions for Guehi, because I think what this says is like, I think we have to go buy another starting center back, because what that does is it tells Konate, like, you sign and you stay long-term here, and we have depth and we can rotate and we can keep a player healthy and we can have the minutes, or we just make the plan around you and it doesn't matter, right? Because like ultimately, could we sell him now? For sure. I think you could go sell him now and get money. I also think there's a world where it makes sense to have him be your third guy. Like, if he's not going to re-sign and he's like up and down from a fitness standpoint, like it makes sense to go sign another young starting caliber center back, whether, it's out of the Portuguese league or a Premier League proven player. There's plenty of options on there. And I think that you can sort of then put the ball in his court and you don't let the player hold the club hostage for the future of that position.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I didn't think about it that way. I don't know what you think about it, Gally. Like in terms of like the Guehi rumors, which seems to be well and alive. Really, nothing is official till it's official. But does it help? Like, how does it affect? Do you think in terms of negotiations with Konate?
I mean, I'm not sure anything's affecting it. They've been talking to these guys for a year and a half. And now today, there's reports that he's unhappy. And then when he gets asked about it, he says, I won't do this in the media. And then when the speculation about Madrid, I've never thought about my next move. He's basically giving us exactly what the last guy who left for free said, almost verbatim, like read out the playbook. So if I'm the club, they're in a much different situation than they were 12 months ago. You don't have a new manager coming in that you have to question whether the unrest of the squad. You don't have to question where you are from a trajectory of club and squad build. If they really wanted to, they could be like, we'll put you in the reserves and you won't be on that plane for France next year at the World Cup. Or, maybe Madrid or PSG will come in with a bid this summer. And I think that's where Guehi is different than all the other names. The Van Heck kid would be a project and would need some work. He'd be coming in to be number 3. Nathan Collins from Brentford would absolutely be coming in to be number 3. There have been other,
you could get Ignacio for what you sold Quansah for out of Sporting if you wanted.
And even Ignacio, he'd probably be coming in He doesn't really play right-sided. He's more of a left-footed. The thing about Guehi is he can start for you. He could back up Virgil. He might be a potential Virgil long-term replacement. He might be your number 2 to pair with the big stud you buy in 2 years to replace Konate. Like, Guehi makes so much sense because he's so versatile, plays all the different positions. Yeah. Like, to me, and he's Premier League proven, there is a reason that nobody has gone to Sporting for 3 years when everybody's been talking about going and getting Ignacio, and he's had a low release clause. I think there's a question mark whether or not physically he can handle the Premier League. He doesn't even start for Portugal. So, I mean, there are some questions there too. I personally would not be comfortable if they go out and buy a foreign center back that isn't like Bastoni or like a big-time, big-name, international level center back, because I think coming to the Premier League, there's no harder position to bet in. That's what made what Huijsen did.
Would you like it if Konate resigned?
I'd have no problem if Konate resigned, and I'll say this right now. I'll double down. I still want him to sign Guehi because I think he gives you a legitimate starting Premier League center back, and I don't think we can have Virgil van Dijk play 50 of 60 games, and Guehi allows you to have a winner.
How much? Because I think I don't know if anybody is gonna say
I go for
they don't want Konate to resign, but what would you consider? Yep, that's fair to keep him.
For Konate, I think the 200K is probably where it has to be. He's got to get paid more than Robertson's been making. He's got to probably hit 200,000 right around now. Maybe it's 175 and playable bonuses that move him to 200, 225. The problem is we know what the truth is. He's going to get 200,000 in Madrid, and he's going to get 10 or 20 million for not having to pay agent fees and not having to buy a player. And if he wants to go, then he's probably already gone. I think the club should sign Guehi first and then give Konate a deadline that he understands, like, your status at this club will change as of July 15th or July 20th or whatever it is if we don't have a contract extension. And that might be us telling you to find a new club, because then we need to buy 2 center backs and we need more time to do it.
Are you okay with that amount, by the way, Bickler? Wages? More importantly, would Konate be okay with that amount?
Yeah, I think I'm fine under 200. I think north of 200 with that bonuses is where I start to get a little, just doesn't make sense to me, given the fact that, like, to me, like, Konate's is only as good as his fitness. And he's done the Joe Gomez thing a little bit too much for me, where we see like stretches of just colossal play and then we see a couple of duds. So,
but I mean, here's the thing, right? If we were having this conversation, we might have last year around this time, I don't know if we're as easily saying, yep, sign him, yep, 200,000, because this is the first time in a long time, apart from that little piece of shit Andrik's tackle there, that, like, he got hurt, and that was like a physical contact thing. So he's had an actually healthy season, Gally, whereas, like I say, last year, I don't blame the club for kind of like waiting on this a little bit, because we didn't know. You don't want to sign a guy for like 200 and then he becomes, Gomez, which I love Gomez. I don't want to put it that way, but
no, and I think it's exactly spot on. It comes back to the fact, something Paul talked about a long time ago, like 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when he like started to really push Matip for that number 2 spot next to Virgil. Paul would say, like, we're looking at the evolution of this defense, like the guy who's going to be the leader. We're going to build this around him. Let's be honest. They bought that guy because he had the fastest closing rate and the fastest recovery speed of any center back for 2 seasons, his last 2 years at Leipzig. And they bought him because Klopp knew he was sending the right back forward and he wasn't asking him to defend. Well, and Frimpong's going to need some help too defending. Don't kid yourself. And that's where Guehi's positioning, and Guehi also has really good speed. So if he's playing that right-hand side, it helps. But there's something never clicked, in my opinion, with Konate. I genuinely don't ever think he's going to be the leader in a defense. Like, he might go to Madrid next year and he's going to look to his right or his left, and it's going to be the Hoisin kid at 20 years old running the show. And I don't think he's your number one guy, which is why I like the Guehi signing, because I think Guehi with Konate could be a good partnership, but Guehi's still the vocal leader and the kind of would probably be almost like the captain-esque defender, where I think if it is Virgil, I just think Konate, he gets lost in matches. I don't know you can build your defense around him. So now I'm kind of talking myself out of 200,000.
I was going to say, you just like sold him. But I guess here's my thing, though. We talked about this a little bit earlier. In some ways, doesn't that Guehi move maybe actually help Konate? Because he knows, I mean, he might not admit or say, or maybe he doesn't even think he's kind of like the sidekick right now in that center back pairing, right? But I mean, we've had games we talked about over here, but there has been spells where he has been the better center back, the more consistent center back. We had like a couple of like periods in the league and stuff. But aside from that, Bickler, I feel like maybe he's like, well, who's going to be next to me over here when this guy leaves in 2 years? So if I'm going to sign a 4-year contract over here, I don't want to be sitting here with Quansah, maybe he's thinking. Whereas you bring in Guehi, maybe he's like, okay, then this guy will be my partner. You think in that sense, Guehi coming in is almost like a help in negotiating with this dude?
It could be. I don't buy the fact that he would look at this side and worry about they're going to put quality next to him because, maybe I'm suffering from severe recency bias here, but I feel like this club has proven over time that they know how to reload. Right. So I don't know if I really buy that. I don't know, man. Maybe something has changed for Konate in terms of what he really wants. Because I never really got the inclination from him that, I don't know. You hear players like Samaikis who, Costas, who's probably had his last game at Liverpool. Or we thought that, right? We thought that when he was making the rounds, right? When the way that he was saying goodbye at the end of the season made it seem like it was a foregone conclusion. But he's a player that says stuff like, playing for Liverpool is like being on Broadway. I would rather be here in this role than be elsewhere starting and playing football. And for Konate, I kind of got similar vibes from him early on in his Liverpool career. Man, the last couple of years, I just haven't gotten that from him. And I kind of wonder if somewhere down the line, he's gotten his head turned a little bit like Trent did. Maybe there's been conversations with Madrid already that we're not privy to. I just I'm not getting a ton of buy-in from him, which makes me think that he's already got one foot out the door.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Probably not a fair comparison because I don't think Costas can even dream of going to Madrid. Nobody else. This is probably the best situation Costas is ever going to be in. Whereas, Konate with his...
I don't know. Costas could leave and get starting football and play for more money elsewhere, right? And if you look at it...
in terms of caliber of club, he's not going anywhere at this level again.
No, and I'm not talking about
Olympiacos or somebody like that, or he might go.
I'm not talking about it from a footballing project standpoint. I'm talking about it from I'm going to move for a different experience to make more money and play football at a different club. So,
but that's what I mean, though. Konate, when you look at Konate's options, Konate's buffet compared to Costas's buffet table, they're going to be very different and more tempting for Konate.
Sure, he's eating at a completely different buffet if you're comparing Leeds United and Real Madrid PSG. But I'd argue right now there should be nothing more appealing for a player who just went through the last 12 months at Liverpool than signing a contract and wanting to be part of this. When you see them bringing in arguably the best player that's going to switch positions and maybe the best number 10 in the world, inverts, at 22. The best left back of 12 months ago in the Premier League, a 21-year-old Hungarian international. And arguably, to Paul's point, one of the most exciting football players and also likable characters. There was a guy on the radio the other day in an interview, and they asked him about Frimpong, and his exact words were, I have had the honor of interviewing lots of people in my life, players, pundits, managers. He's like, even some royal, like members of royal families. You will not find a more energetic and fun person to spend an hour with than Jeremy Frimpong. I spent 1 hour with him, and the only thing I asked my editor was when can I go back for the follow-up? And you could almost see it, and he's infectious. And I think
he's so authentic.
It's people
so authentic
that, you hear how Gravenberch talks and McAllister. Like, there's nothing right now at this club outside of maybe Núñez really trying to play football again, which I got to respect, and maybe Chiesa trying to get home, and kind of restart his career. Those are the only two guys, and maybe Konate now, that have a question mark over him. Harvey Elliott would do anything to get half of Curtis Jones's chance, and he'd stay.
But here's the thing: when you're negotiating, you're not going to say that, right, Gally? I mean, even if Konate thinks
you're right.
The situation ever, you're not going, because the moment you do that, your offer just went down because you're way too eager. So he is going to play the game. But yeah, I mean, I don't see, unless we see him with freaking Trent's tutor or something like that. I can see the Madrid thing, but should we? I guess the main question over here, I'll start with you on this one, Gally, is if he is not signing an extension, do you take the loss and sell him, or do you kind of accept the fact that this is going to happen moving forward in football, where players are going to basically gamble on themselves and play out their contract?
I do think you have to be more prepared for this to happen in football. I feel like you're already kind of playing that Russian roulette with the left wing. And I think if you don't sell Diaz this summer, you probably don't sell him next summer, and he probably walks in 2 years for free. I don't love the idea. I've said it for years on this show with you guys. I hate giving these players away. I don't believe it's in the DNA of this manager to let people walk out the door for free. I don't think he had a choice last season because they couldn't get Trent to they couldn't get him to say what he wanted to do. And they were gambling with the other two big contracts because I don't even know if they knew what they wanted to do. And I just feel like this guy's ruthless. Like, I think they're going to put pressure. And that's why I think this Guehi thing, I'll say this. If Guehi is signed before preseason starts, if they pull this off in a week, right? If by July 1st, Guehi's in the door, they're preparing for a world where they buy Ignacio by the end of the window for his release clause in August, and they sell Konate. I genuinely believe that. If they bring Guehi in quick,
sell him for like 25. I think like when we looked this morning, he's valued at 60 right now, for example. So you would do the 25, 30 and cut your losses short and go invest that in a younger player.
I think I would if the season
starts, right?
I have to have Guehi in the door before I even consider this, because I need to know I have a make-ready partner for Virgil van Dijk, and then I do this with Joe Gomez and the kid I bring in.
How about you, Bickler?
I think it comes down to what you think is good process. And that really comes down to how Edwards wants to handle this. And I think that really has to go down with what you can sell the player for, what the market has and what's available. And so I think there's a world in which you say, okay, if we sell him with this amount left on his contract, with a year left, we're getting $25 million. There is nothing in the market at $25 million that supplants that amount of talent as a number 3, even if we bring in Guehi, right? And so in that world, good process would be we let him run it out, we take the value, right? We take the value and run it out. So I think it has to do with what you can get for him, what the market is, and who you're acquiring.
So basically, ultimately, the replacement cost of like what it's going to cost you to get. I mean, I think you almost have to, even if you get Guehi in there, I think, I kind of am sold on like Gally's concepts. You get Guehi, and then if you get 25, 30, as long as you have another guy you can bring in. But I go back to, especially in the back line, making too many changes, especially with all the talent you brought in, all the money being spent. I think part of me says you would play it safe. Keep Konate, and if he goes for free, he goes for free. You kind of move on.
If you're paying 30 to 40, 35 million for Guehi with 1 year left on his contract, I feel like maybe you can get more for a younger, better version than Konate. Because I do believe Konate is a better version of Marc Guehi. And I think if he's leaving, he's probably going to PSG. and they might give you more money for a French international. And I think he would, even though he wants Madrid, I think he'd sign a long-term contract there. I think they'd bring him in and he'd replace Marquinhos and he'd become captain of their club. Like he's a French international who grew up in Paris. I could see that move making sense. I don't want people to think I'm advocating for selling the player. I actually hope he signs a contract and they sign Guehi. That's like, to me, is like a really good opportunity. Like sign a couple-year deal and maybe we do a wink-wink with him. You know, if Madrid wants to come in with a fair offer, we'll let you go in a year or two. But give us the 2 years that Virgil's here. Sign a 4-year deal, a 3-year deal with one club option or something. And we'll pay you a little more scratch now. It would be great for the club to get this locked up. I don't know why. I just don't feel great about it because I feel like Hughes has kind of proven that if he wants to get something done, he gets it done. And I'm not so sure he's wanted to get this one that done.
And that could be one of those, like, he's not buying last year. I mean, like when I was saying earlier in terms of he's like, I don't know if this guy can stay healthy. So maybe he wants to see it a little bit more and make sure. Because, I mean, it's clear that Sloth is happy with him because obviously he selected him over, you know, like Quansah and stuff. But before we go, I mean, obviously we could probably go for like 2 hours over here. But let's address the front line real quick, too, and see if we get something before next week. We've been having a lot of discussions on the Discord channel, and if you're not on there, you should hop on there. I'll throw the link in both our Facebook broadcast as well as I'll throw it actually on the Spotify too, so if you want to check the description, it'll be in there. But Bickler, Núñez, and Jota. I think Núñez goes with us saying, but if you're not getting a good offer, and I'll let you decide what the good offer is, for Jota, I'm still in the camp of hanging on to Jota, a guy who can come off the bench and change games for you, unless you're going to get, my price would be the 40 and above. Where are you?
40 is the number I had for Jota too. I think you could get it. It'll be interesting. There's. Do
you sell him right away if you see the 40? Like, do you even think about it, or is it still like, you know, well, going back to the replacement cost conversation?
If I can get 40 for Jota, I think I do. But it's gonna be interesting, right? I mean, especially the interest between Chiesa and Darwin for Napoli. There's a deal there that makes sense to me for a striker. You know, you've got. I keep thinking, man, with all the smoke coming out of Isak's camp right now, there's something there. Okay. I don't know if Newcastle will let him go, and I don't know if that. But to me, there's just simply the amount of noise that has come about makes me think that Isak's camp is firmly in the idea that they would like a move to Liverpool. So we'll see what happens there. That'll be an interesting one. I've got my own opinions on that as well. So I mean, as everybody does.
Well, let me throw this then, because we put this out there today on the in our social media. Hold on, I'll eventually get it on here. There we go. Okay, Isak, with the rumor meter over here going from legit to legit. A lot of the comments were more on the legit side over here. Where are you with this gauge from going to A to F? Where are you, Bickler?
As in, like, legit, like how legitimate do I think the rumors are, or how much do I like the transfer?
More about the realism of it.
You can ruin any question asked to you.
No. I don't know our own metrics because I'm not a company man, right? I don't know our own metrics.
Is it Tuesday or is it Monday?
Tuesdays and Wednesdays? I don't know. No, I just don't know if I'm rating how much I like the transfer or how much I think there's like credibility to it. If we're talking credibility, I absolutely think there's credibility to the fact that there's interest from both sides. I think there's interest from everybody except Newcastle. Let me put it that way. And I think so I put it at a B. The amount that you're going to have to get them is well over 100. I don't know if Newcastle. I think Newcastle, you're going to have to pry them from their hands, right? In this case, should they let him go? Which maybe there's a world, because you got to remember, like, they're in a situation. They're not getting Champions League money until, they're not going to see that right out of the gate until next year. So they do have some financial considerations to make. I think you're asking for. Okay, here's the pros. You're getting in my opinion, you're getting the EPL's best striker outside of Holland, right? That's the pro. Premier proven, can slot in, natural finisher. He's everything that we miss from anyone who's not Mo. Like Diaz, I love him, inconsistent finisher. I think he has that. My worry about him is he's missed 28 matches in 2 years, right? So I worry about the durability for a player that you're paying that much. I don't know two things about Isak. I don't know that he's a player that you have to create a game plan around if you're another side. And I don't know that he's an every week striker for your side. And those are two big questions for that money.
Yeah, for that money, especially the second question, I think is really important. I feel like the first question, because of like what we've seen him being able to do in terms of coming out wide, being the target guy in the middle, I think he can fit into any system, Gally. But I think that the fears that most people have when you have Isak is the price for health.
Yeah, he's also not super young. That's a big thing. Like, this is why, to me, with the smoke, I feel like there is a world where he starts to push for the move. And if he starts to push for the move, like, they were almost forced. They sold Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest last year. They didn't want to do it. They had to do it. It was a PSR issue. It was a cash dump. They almost sold Tonali because they needed to profit, and he couldn't play the year prior. Yeah. They almost sold Anthony Gordon to us last year because they needed to balance books. So Paul's right? Like, making Champions League gets you money. Making Champions League multiple years in a row allows you to substantially use that money to actually build a foundation. People joke about the Coutinho money, like, oh, they're still spending the Coutinho money. The Coutinho money didn't buy Alisson and Van Dijk. The Coutinho money made us serial Champions League qualifiers and ones who went deep in the competition. So we made $100+ million 5 out of 7 seasons, and that money went towards all these players that we got, McAllisters and Van Dijks, and built the roster, and now built the coffers that allowed for us to go try to get Caicedo, swing and miss, just to go get Wirtz and, potentially another big player. I don't believe Isak's going to come this summer, but I also said there was a 1% chance we would get Wirtz. And I'm pretty sure I said that after City ruled themselves out because it looked like he was going to Liverpool. And I was still like, I'm at 1% until someone tells me he's not going to Bayern. And then Bayern was like, he's going to Liverpool. I was like, all right, we're going up.
Price-wise, I think that's what the deal is, right? Like, if he's coming, if he was going to be bought for like 60 or 70, I don't think we have as much of a concern. We're saying, hey, we're trading in Núñez, paying an extra 10, 15, you're getting a proven finisher, even if he can't stay healthy all the time. But the anticipation is, I think it's going to be 100 or more, or pretty mighty close. Would you spend that money given the opportunity? Because I think with Wirtz, it was a whole different thing. This is a future player, whereas it's like it's a different situation.
I think you have to. I think you're in a world where you are here to win now. You still have the ability to drum up another 100 million in sales if you want it to, of all the different players that you want to sell. And if Ekitike is going to go for 100 million and Sesko wants 300,000 a week from Arsenal and 90 million in a transfer fee, and Gyökeres, who's never done it outside of Portugal other than failing at Coventry, is about to go for 75 million. And like, I just think in a world where guys who have never scored more than 10 league goals, like Rasmus Højlund, go for 80 million, I think you have to pay for proven Premier League goal scorer. And I think the guy is at that elite level. He could be the number 9 at Madrid, at Barcelona, at Liverpool.
Do you think he's the best strike option for Liverpool on the market?
Yeah, I would probably say Alvarez is, but it's just because I was on this podcast when Timuchin told me that guy that Manchester City was getting was just some South American kid. He might not be that good. And I was like, Julian Alvarez is pretty damn good. And he turned out to be pretty good. I'd like Alvarez because I think he fits what we do. I will say this, Isak with Wirtz is better than what I thought Alvarez was best when it was going to be Dominic Szoboszlai running behind him and him doing the floating around spaces. I think if you tell me pure striker, like what does Wirtz need? He needs Robert Lewandowski, and the closest thing I've seen to a guy get on the end of a run and finish is Alexander Isak.
Let me propose this. We know Napoli is interested in Darwin and Chiesa. They have a striker.
There's no chance.
Why Timuchin? Why not? Why not?
I've said this before. One, the age. I don't think the age works.
He's a year older. He's a year older than Isak. 1 year older than Isak.
Well, let me freaking finish. He's a pain in the ass. You just bragged about this, the type of player we get and the players we get. The dude is an established pain in the ass in the locker room. Whatever club he plays for.
Whatever club he plays for. I think I've only seen this issue at Napoli.
No, he had the problem at Lille. He had the problem at Lille, and there was a reason that PSG supposedly backed out. He agreed to go to Saudi twice and then turned him down. He actually made it really difficult. Last year, he was available to any club in Europe, and no offense to Muchin, the only club that even tried at the end. And I know it was because Napoli was trying to sell him to Saudi, but the Turkish league is open a couple weeks later, so they actually got him on loan. But nobody came in at the last minute. No one has made a move for him. United is desperate for a striker, and they're even nervous to go near him. Plus, he's made it clear he wants $350,000 a week to even talk.
Really, that's not what I heard. I heard he wanted a similar wage demands now.
His wage demands have been through the roof from what everybody has said.
That I don't like his money. He's turned the Saudi league down multiple times. If
you check too, his injury record actually isn't that good. He missed 50% of his games the first year in Napoli, and it's no reason for the way they treated him in Napoli. They were wrong, and I don't blame him for not wanting to go back there. But he is an amazing talent, but it always feels like there's something there that no one wants to talk about.
You know what he is? He's an NFL wide receiver playing striker. That's what he is. Really good.
To me, of all the strikers that are available, that's the one striker you have to create a game plan around.
I still feel like he feels to me like he will be a deadline day signing by Chelsea. That's what he feels like. There'll be all this talk about Ekitike. There'll be all this talk about all these people. And then on deadline day, they'll stump up the $63 million. They'll offer him $300,000. And he'll show up, and he'll probably be really, really good. But it feels like it might be for a short period of time.
I think he's going to Saudi. Everything I read, because I read a lot more about him because, Galatasaray is trying to retain him in one way or the other and stuff like that. So in the Turkish media, and it's looking more because I think they're the only ones who can afford it. And he will do. He's a great player. I'll give him that. The dude is so dangerous in the box and everything like that. But his personality is just a pain in the ass. Because honestly, one of the best things that happened to Galatasaray was probably the fact that Icardi got injured and stuff like that. Before then, it was like a hot mess. Like I say, we talked earlier in the show about how we like the synergy and the personalities and stuff like that.
I don't know if I buy into the fact that he's as big a problem as you guys think he is from a personality.
Based on what, though?
Based on the situations he's been in the management.
Okay, is it when the same guy is in multiple situations, is it the situation or is it the guy sometimes? And I'm not talking about.
I don't fault anyone for having problems in the French league because the French are some of the most racist people in business in general. I don't like the Napoli social media team and the way that management team has handled that has been absolutely abhorrent. I haven't heard the same things that you have heard about the wage situation. I heard that he's happy with being around what he's making, maybe a little bit more, which would put him in the I think he wants to be in the mid twos. I haven't heard that $300,000 number, and I know that he's turned down multiple offers to go make that in Saudi, which makes me believe it's not driven by money.
Well, I think that's to drive that money further. The interesting thing is going to be we talk about all these strikers. Who is going to blink first? It's almost like all these guys are waiting on the other one to sign the contract because they all, obviously there's all these teams that are looking for the striker and these guys are waiting on the sideline making ridiculous demands. I almost feel you were giving some quoting some prices earlier, Gally. One of these guys is going to blink and sign for 70 or something like that. And all those prices, I think, are going to come down but that's just me.
I think Joker is going to sign first, and I think that's not going to help anybody. I think Sesko could end up staying another year. The real rumor out there is that Napoli just wants him to go to Saudi or wants him to go back to Galatasaray because ultimately he wants to go to Juventus, but the Italian clubs won't sell to each other because they don't like selling their stars and they can't negotiate, which is why a lot of people think we actually got Chiesa because Juventus Inter Milan offered more money than we did for Chiesa.
Yeah, they don't play well. Same thing in Turkey, same thing in Greece. It's a Mediterranean thing. We don't sell to each other.
I could literally see a world where the guy goes off for a year, almost for 1 year somewhere, just so somebody sells him off to somebody else, because he really wants to be at Juventus. And I that's the other thing. It feels to me he had so many chances Osimhen has to come to the Premier League, going out on loan. Chelsea was interested at one point. United's had interest for years. I just feel like if he wanted that challenge, I think he would have taken it already. And it doesn't feel to me like that's where he wants to be. I think he likes the style of play in Italy. I think he likes it to be a little slower. I think he likes to be a little bit more. He doesn't.
Oh, he loves the casual racism over there.
I think he's gotten, unfortunately for him, he's gotten used to it. And here's the other thing. He's a non-starter for me because I can lose one of my goal scorers for 6 weeks in the middle of the busiest time of the year. I can't lose two of them for the AFCON. And he's going to a good point, actually.
That's a good point.
I think that's a factor in how you would sign a player and what you'd think about. But Tim, you said one thing earlier about Jota, about the price. I don't think the price of 40 million or 50 million gets dictated whether the club listens. I think Jota leaves if Jota walks in and says, I want to go. Because I genuinely think this club is at a point now where if a player came to them and said, I don't want to be here, I need to play, I think this manager, this regime would be like, all right, we'll see what we can do. We're not promising you. We're not giving you away. But, I don't think Jota is comfortable being the James Milner of the attacking front four. Because there's no trip to the United States with that Portugal side if he's not playing meaningful games next year for Liverpool. And anyone who thinks that this World Cup next summer isn't playing into the minds of these players, especially ones who are on their last chance at going to one, I think it's more important to him than anyone. If he went to West Ham, he scores enough goals to make that flight. I'll guarantee it.
But don't you think Jota? I mean, we were talking about Isak would be a perfect fit to play along with a player like Wirtz and stuff like that. Honestly, a healthy Jota would be as well, because that's probably the closest thing we have right now to a finisher. Obviously, canceling out Mo, because I know we're kind of judging it after the injury, the second half and stuff like that. He's not that old, I think, where we can say he is finished. I still think, and let's face it, he was the chosen one early in the season. He was the starter until he got injured. And I thought he was doing really well because he could connect those dots between the wings, and he can kind of go out wide, and he can kind of drop and build play and stuff like that. I think unless the offer is really good, even if Jota does want to leave, I don't think we let him go. It goes back to replacement costs, because who are you going to get to replace him? But hopefully all unfold. I'm thinking this week, one of those guys is going to blink. And once one striker signs, I think all the domino pieces are going to fall. Either like what you're saying, Gali, some of these guys are going to be like, you know what, I'll wait another year, I guess. And they're going to stay where they're at. Or they're going to go down in price, and we're going to see some movements. Having said that, are we going to see some movement? Do you see anybody coming in after Kerkez this week as we finish with some predictions, as always, Bickler? 1 week from now, we meet, aside from Milos Tuesday, do we have another day where somebody comes in?
I don't think so. I think it's going to slow down a little bit. I think there'll be a little bit of evaluating the market, but been wrong before, that's for sure.
How about you, Gali?
I think there'll be more outgoings in the next week. I mean, we saw Nat Phillips go today. We saw Quansah go over the weekend. I think the Harvey Elliott talk, as soon as the Euros ends, will heat up, as he's had a really good Euros. I think guys like Tyler Morton, who's really looked good at the Euros, actually, the under-21s, I think he probably gets his move. I think they sell some more of the fringe guys.
Coming in?
only one I could see is maybe Guehi if it really moved fast. But I don't know where Palace is right now. They just changed ownership. That may take time. Plus, we have to do the whole math thing. July 1st is only 8 days away. So that's next, Tuesday or Wednesday? So that's the new plan year. So it really depends on where do you want the math to be, on this year's PSR or on last year's PSR. And that stuff matters nowadays. Not as much to clubs like Liverpool because, they sell guys like Quansah for $40 million in profit and just piss off clubs like United who can't get 4 different guys who came out of their academy out the club.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Guehi. I really think it's very likely because it's very similar to the Konate conversation we had tonight. They would not. Palace cannot afford to just let him walk for nothing. And they turned down 70 last year, right, from Newcastle. So I do think, they do take the. And you know what? Palace can look at that now, and if they sell to Liverpool for like 40, 50 or whatever, they can say, you know what? That was a good decision. We won the FA Cup. And that will be like a good business decision there. And we still got our 50 million kind of a deal. And I think that's why they do that move. But I do think that becomes official. And the prediction with that one. That one does become official sometime this week and gets announced. But wow, that's it for us today. We went a lot longer than our normal hour over here. Things are out of control. And honestly, we didn't get to half the topics that we said we would probably talk about today. So an exciting transfer window, even for me that I normally hate this window over here. But tune in tomorrow's night's panel show, and listen to the other guys and see if they find their off season as exciting as we're finding our off season over here. But thanks a lot for all those watching and listening today. Hit the like and subscribe and stuff like that. Kevin says rather let him go now for a fee than free. Get on that phone, Kevin.
Attaboy, Kevin.
And let them know. Make this thing happen, because I just made the prediction that next Monday we'll be talking about Guehi Friday or something like that. But have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you guys then.